Greetings, Padawan. You have made it through the syllabus and all the introductory materials. Yay. So now we're going to get started on the nitty-gritty of the course. And we're going to start with our good friend Washington Irving and his Rip Van Winkle. So in the module, you'll be reading Rip Van Winkle. You'll be watching a cartoon. You'll be doing a project. And you'll read about the backstory of Washington Irving and how this piece came about. But I just want to point out some tidbits that are really important to understand the work and to understand why we start here. So Washington Irving is the first American romantic. And he's the first romantic because prior to writing Rip, he wrote something called The History of New York. And that was styled in the Enlightenment style. And so in literature, and probably other disciplines and fields as well, literature runs on a pendulum, and it swings back and forth between scientific reason and imagination. And so the pendulum never stays in one spot, right? If you've seen a pendulum, it doesn't just stay in one spot ever. So, there might be people who are closer to the reason side or people who are closer to the imagination side. But that pendulum is always swinging. And so Irving started writing during the Age of Reason, writing in the Enlightenment style, but then he breaks away with the publication of Rip Van Winkle, which is this imaginative, creative folklore, this great story, and that was not what they were publishing in Britain. So for the first time, we have an American story which gains international fame, and that is the birth of what we now call the American Romantic period. Now, just like Gen X and millennials and things like that, nobody was calling themselves an American Romantic during that period. We've named that period American Romanticism, in higher ed because we had to do something with our time, right? So he wasn't running around calling himself anything, but this publication, this brilliant, imaginative, funny story. It's like makes you think. It's a fun story. So different than what was being published in Europe at the time. So different than anything that had been done on the land before the American Revolution or right after it. So it's definitely the first piece of literature that we can point to and say this is American, and it is the birth of the Romantic movement. And we're going to see this pendulum swing with Rip Van Winkle at the one end, and it's going to swing through the transcendentalists, nature writers, through the poets, up through the birth of the Gothic with Edgar Allan Poe, up through Melville, and then with Walt Whitman, and then a war breaks out. And that takes us back to realism. So Age of Reason is scientific thought and realism and realistic views of the world. Then we have this imagination, this heartfelt coloring of the world, more liberal, right? And then it goes back to, the pendulum will swing back to realism with the writings of Mark Twain and the folks that wrote after the American Civil War. So, great story. You're going to love the cartoon. I mean, it makes me laugh every time, and I've seen it 1,000 times. It makes me laugh every time I watch it, especially the portrayal of the wife. Cracks me up every time. So I'm interested in your projects. They're going to be a lot of fun, and I'm interested in your comments that you will be leaving on Flipgrid. So be well. See you soon.